views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio. Are you ready to stop stress, anxiety, and low self-esteem from running your life? Join award-winning author Dr. Friedemann Schaub from Empowerment Radio as he addresses some of the most prevailing challenges in our day-to-day lives. Find out how you can use the power of your mind to overcome self-sabotaging patterns and build a solid foundation of confidence and self-respect. Learn cutting-edge tools and approach every day with great ease, joy, and purpose. This is the time to empower yourself. Now, here's your host, Dr. Friedemann Schaub.
Welcome to Empowerment Radio, another Wednesday. I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann Schaub, and today we will talk about lying. Not lying down, but lying in the terms of not speaking the truth, fibbing, distorting, things like that. So today it's all about lying and why, for some reason, we seem to have become a little bit more comfortable with lying and liars. I mean, the presidential election has kind of proven it, right? I mean, when you think about how many fact checkers were clearly stating that the candidates were not really telling the truth, in fact, that they were more playing with the truth, like kids with etch-a-sketches, and still, we believed them. Still, we voted for them, elected them. There was a time when it was actually a big story when a politician lied. Now it seems more to be a big story when a politician is telling the truth. And we are not necessarily on the barricades for that. Well, maybe we are starting to really get upset about it, but on some level, there is still a acceptance about lying. That is not only about lying with politicians, but it's also about lying with ourselves, within ourselves. And I just talked to our producer, and I don't want to make him feel bad, but I asked him, have you lied already today? And he was so courageous and honest to admit that he had. Now ask yourself, have you already at this young day told someone a lie? A white lie, a gray lie, whatever you want to call it, but still, you haven't really been in the truth. And then ask yourself, why? Why is it that lying is something that you may feel more comfortable with? You know, when we grew up, it was called liar, liar, pants on fire. Lies make baby Jesus cry. Lies have short legs. Or, you know, when you lie, you get a big nose. Well, with my schnoz, it's definitely something that made me believe I'm a professional liar just by my looks. But, lying was really seen as something bad. It's part of the 10 Commandments. You shall not lie. And still, somehow, this whole idea about telling the truth and staying with the truth becomes less and less important. The University of Washington has even started to think about to invent a program about BS. And it's not Bachelor of Science. It's actually about how we can find BS in the news and when people are talking, and also how to invent it, and how to create it. What are the signs? What are we doing in order to tell people lies that are so convincing that, we actually cannot really distinguish them any longer from the truth? So if a very credited university is starting to think about teaching about telling BS, we may have a crisis of truth-telling at our hands. And so this show is all about coming back to the importance of not only telling the truth and the positive effects of that are not only on a personal level, but also on a level of our entire society, maybe globally, able to make a difference. And it's also about understanding more what are lies about? Why are we lying? What is the reason and the benefit from skipping around the facts or the truth, and have a little bit of understanding and compassion with ourselves. Because too often we are just seeing the symptoms and we are judging and condemning ourselves for whatever we are doing, and are telling ourselves we shouldn't, but we are not necessarily illuminating what's underneath it. Where does it come from? And how can we address those deeper root causes to really stop us from having patterns that ultimately don't serve us? Now, when I was a child, I was kind of trained to lie. Lying was almost like the secret code of our family, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, I often hear from my clients that lies were used to keep the peace. Lies were used to not rock the boat or upset the father, and that was exactly what happened in my family. My father was a good man, and he was certainly someone who has helped a lot of people, but he also had a temper, and he could be quite volatile. And if there is something that really he didn't like, some news he had a hard time to stomach, he could explode and he could scare the entire family. So my mother, in her effort to manage him and keep the peace, just told us, kids, don't tell your dad or make up a story. And that was continuously going on until our adulthoods, until the day he died, pretty much. When I was 16 years old, I remember me and my friend, we were thinking of doing a little adventure in the midterm break, and we thought, why not hitchhiking to Paris? Now, of course, we couldn't tell our parents, so we had to tell a lie about going for 3 days in the depth of the Black Forest and camping there. Well, we were standing by the side of the road, scared that someone would know us and someone would discover what we were doing. But thank God nobody did. We were in Paris, but we didn't really enjoy it because the whole time we had, this feeling maybe someone is watching us or we are running into someone. And we both knew the story of a friend who had this amazing idea to drive with his moped 24 hours to Paris. And then the moment he was there and he felt all big and free and wonderful, he went up to the Eiffel Tower, and on top of the Eiffel Tower, he met someone from our little tiny village, 3,000 people. Of course, his parents didn't know. These people called them. He was in big trouble, had to take the train back home. We know the story. And so we were just on edge the whole time in Paris, couldn't really relax. And only when we came home and we were told or asked, so how was your camping trip? And again, we had to lie and invent stories. Afterwards, we could really be ourselves again. We could exhale and we could feel a little bit better. So was it worth it? Maybe a nice story to tell your friends, but it's not necessarily something that in the moment I could really enjoy. So on some level, we know that lying does make us uncomfortable. We know that lying is often also something that can be damaging to relationships. We know that we are, through lying, undermining the trust that other people may have in us and also the trust in ourselves. So why do we do it? What is the reason that we go back into these patterns of lying? And what is actually happening on a subconscious level that gets us to do this? And what are the consequences? Not only the consequences of being found out, but what are the consequences neurologically? What are the consequences in regards to your confidence? And what are the consequences maybe on a societal level as well, as we can see right now? All of those questions and more we will address when we come back after the break. But before we go there, I also want to invite you to speak up and tell the truth about your lying habits, or maybe your stories on when you lied and what happened and how it felt, or what your insights are about lying. Why have you done it? Why do you still do it? Why do you feel you can't do without it? Be brave. Call in or use the ask a question chat box on transformationtalkradio.com. It would be really nice to hear from you and to have you share honestly your experiences with lying. George Orwell, I think, said that in a time of deception, telling the truth is like a little revolution, a little rebellion. And I think today we can just start with that little revolution of truth-telling by calling in and sharing our stories. I'm looking forward to that. And right now we go to the break, and we will be right back with more on lying and truth-telling.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
What is a brilliant culture? And how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you design a culture that is authentic, innovative, and successful. Learn how to create change with Cultural Brilliance Radio, the DNA of organizational excellence, and Claudette Rowley. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit ClaudetteRowley.com.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
Are you ready for a game changer? Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Sarah brings you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Tune in to Business Game Changers Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
If you have been struggling with fear and anxiety, you know how debilitating these emotions can be. You constantly doubt yourself, you can't make decisions, and feel more and more insecure and stuck. Dr. Friedemann Schaub's book, The Fear and Anxiety Solution, will provide you with the insights and tools to break through these challenges. Through a step-by-step process, Dr. Schaub explains how to resolve the subconscious root causes of fear and anxiety and build a strong foundation of inner peace and confidence. Visit www.thefearandanxietysolution.com and get your copy now.
Order your copy of Dr. Friedemann Schaub's The Fear and Anxiety Solution today. Visit thefearandanxietysolution.com for more information.
Welcome back to Empowerment Radio, and we are talking about lying, and as we all know, we are pretty much all guilty of it. But this is not a lie. The music that you were hearing, and I promised the composer to mention it, it is called Be Water, like the water, and it's done by Redward von Dernberg, a German guy who just reached out and said, hey, can you play this music on your show? And you can find out more about his work at thecaravel.net, Caravel, spelled the, CARAVEL.net. It's a great piece, and I know he has more wonderful music pieces out there. And if you are a composer or a musician and you would like to send in some of your music to spread the word, to share it with the listeners, I would love to do that. So please just send it to info@thefearandanxietysolution.com. That's again, info@thefearandanxietysolution.com. Another thing I wanted to mention before we tap and delve back into lying is that today and for all other shows, there will be a special offer for you, the listeners, to join the on-demand video seminar series. Usually it is $325, but if you send an email and you just indicate that you are listening to the show, you will get a special coupon, and it will be through that coupon code only $99 for you. So check it out. It may be exactly what you have been looking for to overcome your fear and anxiety. You can find out more about this program and things I do at thefearandanxietysolution.com. That's all in one word, thefearandanxietysolution.com. So when I asked you before, have you lied today? Some of you may have been blushing, smiling, or just vigorously shaking your head, lying to yourself while you did it. What did you find out about when those lies happened and why you did lie? Isn't it interesting how sometimes these lies just occur almost automatically? Now, when I looked at my patterns and also the patterns of the people I've been working with about lying, one thing that was striking me really is that there are 3 or 4 things we just do over and over again. Now, of course, there are these really pathological liars, the narcissists or sociopaths that are just lying to benefit themselves, to enrich themselves, to get power, to manipulate, and they don't really have any kind of conscience and they don't feel bad about it because they always tell themselves maybe it's for the greater good or it's, they're right, or what other lies they are sharing with themselves to not have to feel guilty. But for most of us, there is a little churning in the stomach or, this feeling of guilt that just makes you shrink and at times even have nightmares about it. Even if it's just little lies, just makes you feel a little bit lousier about yourself. And still, there are reasons why mankind has been lying pretty much since the first time they could interact with each other. One of the reasons is to not make people feel bad. Whether we are living in a tribe, in a cave, or in a big cities and are dealing with our neighbors, when we are with our families, there is just, like in my family, this pattern of not wanting to embarrass others, hurt others, or somehow disappoint them. There's a friend of yours coming proudly back with a absolutely this horrible haircut. Well, are you saying, I liked it better before? No, you're smiling and saying, oh, that looks nice. Or, your child is proudly, blaring out the song she learned at school and you know that she cannot hold a tune, but you don't say to this little girl, oh, you know what, it's better if you learn to play an instrument because you don't want to hurt her feelings. And that's all nice and good, right? I mean, the intentions are pure and ultimately it's a sign of compassion and empathy. But when we really look a little bit deeper, isn't it also just self-defense? Are we not just not wanting to hurt others because we don't want them to feel bad about us? Are we not just trying to be nice so that we are looking good and don't get rejected or criticized by them? So in some ways, when we're honest, we are selfish. Even if we're saying we're doing it for others and for the sake of their well-being, we do it also to protect ourselves. And that is what I think happened early in the especially tribal consciousness. To be a part of the tribe, and being a part of the tribe was ultimately a matter of survival. Now, that is one aspect of lying, just this self-protection. And then there is the other aspect of lying, to gain some sense of importance, some self-worth. And I believe since the age of the internet and social media, that form of lying just became stronger and somehow more dominant. I mean, when you look at your own postings or the postings of others on Facebook and other outlets, well, you don't necessarily show yourself with the bad hair day, coming just right out of bed, feeling lousy and not wanting to go to work. And you don't show yourself sitting alone on the sofa on the weekend, eating your third bowl of cereal, feeling really, alone and without any friends. You are pretending that life is amazing. It's an adventure. Every day there is a new surprise, and you are on top of it, and you're always in a good mood, and you're always feeling great. And that is certainly something that through this lying, which is ultimately just a distortion of the truth or a deletion of all the things that don't look so nice, you are putting a lot of pressure on yourself. And you're also putting a lot of pressure on others that watch you and that think that they have to measure up and be as good as you are and can't. So that form of lying, in some ways has existed, of course, before. I remember as a little boy, me and my friend were telling us great fibs about how amazing our fathers are, and that we had buttons installed at home where when we push them, we can directly talk to space. And that's a part also of human nature, just to exaggerate and gain a sense of, I have one up on you. But again, it's a matter of, when does it stop? Usually it should stop in our childhood. And what is really driving this behavior of always wanting to be better and getting some approval, ultimately, as we know, it's a deepest sense of insecurity and not feeling good enough, not feeling acceptable, not feeling that we can measure up. Now, and that's a really interesting part of lying, is that unconscious lying. The things we don't even know that we do. There was a study, and in that study, they had, I think, 20 or 30 participants just tell stories, ask, questions that they were supposed to answer. And afterwards, the researchers were fact-checking those stories and trying to illuminate what was the truth and what wasn't the truth. Now, interestingly, 60% of those participants actually lied at one or another time during the conversation. Everyone who was asked said, no, I just completely told the truth. And only after they were replayed the tape of the conversation, they realized that they actually had been lying, that it wasn't really the truth, and that they somehow had been dabbling in some fabrication, some fiction, or maybe just some little distortion of what happened. And they were not really aware of it. Now, that is a form of lying most of us probably do on a daily basis. And somehow we don't really notice it. Somehow we are just keep on going with that story as if it's a track on its own without really stopping ourselves. Like George Costanza of Seinfeld said, well, it's not a lie if you believe it's true. Well, in some ways, I think we do this all the time. Now, there are, of course, whether it's a conscious lie, an unconscious lie, whether it's a lie to protect ourselves, to make others feel better, or whether it's a lie to boost our egos. All of this puts us further and further away from the truth, further and further away from that what we know for ourselves is real, feels right, is actually that who we are. And there are the downsides of going more and more into the habit of lying, that we are having a harder and harder time to find this truth. And this is the fourth form of lying that I believe we are really suffering the most from, which is when we are lying to ourselves. What does it mean to lie to ourselves? Well, ultimately, lying to ourselves happens all the time, way more often than we are aware of. One of the things we do when we lie to ourselves is telling ourselves at the beginning of the week, this time I'm going to work out 3 times, and we never go to the gym. That is a lie. Or we are saying we're going to eat healthier, watch less TV, get the chores done, pay the checks, all of those things that we are giving ourselves as a goal, only knowing already that we're probably going to procrastinate, that we probably not follow through, that we're probably going to end up just, again, in the same place that we ended the week before. So there are these lies that, by simply not following through, happen inside of us pretty much every day. But then there are more subtle ways of lying, the ways of lying to ourselves that are almost, again, unconscious. And those are the ways where we are telling ourselves stories about who we are, like the story of, well, I just am a loser, or I cannot really get what I want. I'm not really lovable. People don't like me. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I measure up. These form of lies that are lies, because you can ask maybe 50 people you know, and they would say, no, this is not true. You're completely amazing. You have so much to, just show for yourself. You're liked by so many people. You have an unbelievable history behind you. There are a lot of things that would just tell the opposite, the truth. But why is it then that we continue to lie to ourselves? Why is it that we are holding on to those stories that are distorting the truth, creating some smaller, more negative version of who we really are? Well, let's talk more about this when we come back right after the break.
Tune in to Dynamics of Diversity Radio, scripting the new narrative for immigration with leading experts Kripa Upadhyaya and Steve Tanijo on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This show will remove the noise that often accompanies discussions on this topic and share a new perspective on the dynamics of immigration and diversity, ever reminding us that together we are all at the core of innovation, excellence, and positive change. Visit OrbitLawPLLC.com for upcoming topics.
You, yes you, can be the highest version of yourself. Wellness coach and natural beauty expert Dr. Agnes Frenkel is on a mission to help you play the game of your life. Win in vibrancy, health, and beauty. Because you deserve it. Dr. Agnes goes beyond the limits in her personal coaching sessions to revolutionize health and wellness. Now is the time to unleash your true power. For more information, visit dragnesfrenkel.com.
Beyond being this amazing neurologist, inventor, author, Dr. Dan Cohen has been called to look at technology and look at personal and spiritual development and merge these together. His technology uses the healing and psychospiritual effects of synchronized sounds, vibrations, electromagnetic fields, and how that interacts with us in our nervous system in what we're calling the Soul Tech chair.
The Soul Tech Lounge induces profound levels of relaxation that transition over time into deep meditative states. The synchronized sound, vibration, and magnetic field induce these states. The subject doesn't have to work at it.
To learn more, go to soltechwellbeing.com. That's SOLTEC Wellbeing.
Are you ready to stop stress, anxiety, and low self-esteem from running your life? Join award-winning author Dr. Friedemann Schaub for Empowerment Radio and learn breakthrough solutions to switch out of survival mode and approach every day with great ease, joy, and purpose. Tune in the first and third Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific to Empowerment Radio with host Dr. Friedemann Schaub on Transformation Talk Radio. Visit thefearandanxietysolution.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Leslie Fontaine, and my show is Sheer Alchemy on TransformationTalkRadio.com. When we're bogged down with our emotions, the hardships that plague us in our relationships, at work, our finances, we literally can't see the higher plane where we could be operating from. Tune in to Leslie Fontaine, Sheer Alchemy on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. It's all about lying, and it's all about finding the truth again. So before the break, I talked about how we lie to ourselves. And why do we do that? For example, lying to ourselves by calling ourselves names, putting ourselves down, making ourselves just appear less than others. This is again a self-defense mechanism, something that we have learned early in our lives. It's better to go under the radar. It's better to expect the worst, to know that the shoe's going to drop because at least we are prepared. It's better to look at the obstacles than at the opportunities, because at least we cannot get blindsided or disappointed. Now, all of those things are learned. Again, we are even learning to lie to ourselves to ultimately survive, to protect ourselves, to be in that pattern of defense. And that is one thing the subconscious does so well. It keeps us afloat. It tries to make sure that we are safe. But of course, there are negative consequences of lying, whether it's lying to ourselves or lying to others. There is a really great book. It's called The Truth Heals, and it's by Deborah King. And The Truth Heals is basically a book written by someone who has been also living in a house of lies. On the outside, her life, Deborah's life, was beautiful. It was a great family, happy. Everything seemed just idealistic or ideal. But then she, later on in her life, had to admit that most of what actually had been appearing so perfect on the outside was a lie. Her father was a very nice man. He had a good sense of humor. He was gentle and playful. But he also molested her for years at night when he came to her room and fondled her and did things that were absolutely horrible and inappropriate for this little girl. But he always told her, don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone. And so she learned to lie to protect him and to somehow keep that secret from the world. Her mother was lying because her mother was in denial. She lied to herself. She lied to all those around her by simply pretending didn't happen, nothing was going on, all was well. And this little girl was lying into her adulthood because she pretended that what had happened either didn't happen or was okay that it happened. And so she suppressed all that inside of her that continuously said, this is wrong, this feels bad, this is something a father shouldn't do, others don't do that. She just suppressed it all for the sake of keeping that structure, this harmony in the household intact. By doing so, she put a lot of pressure and responsibility on her little shoulders, and she damaged herself. And it wasn't until she had physical and emotional problems that basically were a signal that the truth wanted to burst out of her, wanted to be expressed, wanted to be seen, that she finally was able to speak about what happened to her and admit to herself and others that she didn't have this wonderful childhood, but that she was a victim of abuse and that she was damaged and hurt because of it. And in this book are many stories, like stories I have also heard from my clients, that are a testimony of how lying and living in a lie can ultimately lead to an enormous drain of energy, life force, how your health at some point is just no longer sustainable because that internal pressure of holding yourself in that lie and not letting the healing of the truth come forth is getting more and more to you, emotionally and physically. I remember a client of mine who has been in the lie of his sexuality until his late 60s. He knew early on in his life that he was gay, but he couldn't admit it to himself. He couldn't admit it to the world, so he pretended to be, like he said, normal. And he was having girlfriends and in society just playing that role of what he thought he should be, and he wasn't really ever admitting what he really felt inside. And he got ill. His body was shutting down. His emotions were just going onto a level of almost no longer wanting to live because of living in that lie. So in the book, The Truth Heals, it just expresses to you how the truth, that often is depicted as, well, the truth hurts, the truth is hard, people cannot handle the truth. Well, the truth actually is setting you free. The truth is something that can lead to healing and just a realignment of yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So if we don't tell the truth, if we go into that comfort of lying, and this, maybe it's just a short win, an instant gratification of not having to face the truth. Ultimately, we are hurting ourselves more than if we are facing the truth. Now, one of the problems with lying, of course, is that relationships get destroyed. Marriages that were ultimately coming to an end because of a lie. There are many stories of that. You may have relationships with your contractor where you had a, sense of confidence and trust in the man, and then 3 times when he said he did something, he didn't. 3 times when he said he will show up, he didn't. Well, after the 4th time, you just feel, well, I don't trust him anymore. I don't really want to work with him anymore. So lies do destroy connections, do destroy relationships. But another problem with lying that people often don't realize is that lying makes us almost become habitual to it. There's a study that showed in the brain, when we lie, not frequently, but just, once in a while, there's something happening that creates discomfort. It's an interesting phenomenon that the brain is sending out signals of uneasiness when we are lying. But the problem is when we lie more frequently and when we get away with the lying, those signals become less and less, and we become more and more numb to those signals. And so in some ways, we are becoming more habitual and more comfortable in being liars. And I believe that is a dangerous trend. Why? Because when we do lie continuously, and we know that we do, how do we know that others are really telling us the truth? How do we know that there is a truth anymore when all we are really focusing on are lies? And in some ways, that's what's happening also now in our society, where we are told everyone is lying. You cannot trust the news. You cannot trust the people that tell you this is how it is. You cannot trust the internet. You cannot trust the scientists. You cannot trust facts. You cannot trust anything. And when we are told we cannot trust because everything is a lie, and when we know that we are also guilty of lying, eventually we feel that the world is going into the abyss of chaos. And in those moments, it is when someone appears as that savior, the one that says we can make it all better now, the one that says I'm the one who leads you into the truth. This is when we are the most susceptible to people that are power hungry, that are ultimately despots that just try to take that power from all for their own benefit. Now, I'm not saying that this is exactly what happens right now, but I know in history, and you probably do that too, especially in the history from my upbringing, from my parents in Germany. There are many examples that show that lies are the bridge to chaos, and chaos is the bridge to ultimately the downfall of structure, of order, and also of democracy. So lies are not just something we can take lightly. There are consequences to it. There are consequences on a personal level, and there are consequences on a global level. And, when we go back to the personal level and its consequences, I think one of those consequences is that confidence, that trust in yourself, that feeling of, I know at least that I can see my truth. I know at least that my word counts to myself. And I think that is something that is unfortunately undermined when we are lying. Now, one form of lying that is really, really subtle, but so painful when we are falling into, is the lying of looking at ourselves, where we are not seeing who we are, when we're not seeing our truth. There are people that have a hard time to look into the mirror because they are believing what they would see there is horrible, it's disgusting. It's not really what should be there or what they should be seeing. So they're looking away. There are people that are putting inches of makeup on their beautiful faces because they want to lie about their age. They want to lie about their wrinkles, lie about their experiences that created their wrinkles, lie about the wisdom that is underneath those wrinkles. There are people that are lying about their fears and their weaknesses, not only lying to others, but also lying to themselves and pushing and forcing themselves to do things that deep inside they know they're not up to. They know they don't like to jump out of a plane and do parachuting. They know they're not up to going in front of a crowd and speaking and being in the spotlight. They know they're not up to going and buying a bigger house and having to work harder and dealing with more debt. They know they don't feel this is the right thing. They know this is not their truth, but they still do it because somehow they are telling themselves, I have to. This is what's expected from me. That's what everyone else is doing. And these form of lyings are ultimately, I believe, the most detrimental to ourselves because they are overriding all those little signals that could lead us to a better connection to ourselves, to a more peaceful, more harmonious, and more fulfilling relationship with ourselves. So when we come back, we will talk about that. How can we overcome the pattern of lying to ourselves and others? What can we do right now, today, to make the truth the most important goal for us, to covet the truth again and live from it, through it, and ultimately be it. We will be right back.
Is traditional medicine not working for you? Do you still feel as if your health isn't 100%? Here at the Holistic Medical Center, Dr. Nushin Darvish and the qualified staff look through the dimensions of wellness and start a healing plan prioritized to your needs. Our physicians assess the whole you until complete health is achieved. Get the help you need by visiting drdarvish.com or call 425-451-0404.
Tune in to Mainstream Metaphysics Radio to harness your connection with the universe to effect change for optimal success and happiness. Named one of the country's top psychics, Eve now brings her insights and gifts to this weekly hit call-in show, joined by visionaries, leaders, and gifted others, but mostly you. Jot it down. Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
How would you like increased health and vitality? How would you like to avoid the onset of disease as well as slow the aging process? This is all possible through a simple, safe, and natural process. Every day we are either moving toward wellness or away from wellness.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. I'd like to be your partner in achieving optimal health. Contact me now at maryjanemack.com or call 425-392-0659. Visit maryjanemack.com.
Artie Hoffman is the hottest psychic with the warmest heart and the host of the hit show Angels and Answers. A renowned psychic, medium, spiritual life coach, and an entertaining motivational speaker, Artie has helped over 15,000 people with his amazing intuitive gifts, his passion, and his humor. Call 877-ANGEL-02 to schedule a personal reading or to have your own psychic Artie party. That's 877-ANGEL-02. And visit artiehoffman.com and Angels and Answers on Facebook.
If you have been struggling with fear and anxiety, you know how debilitating these emotions can be. You constantly doubt yourself, you can't make decisions, and feel more and more insecure and stuck. Dr. Friedemann Schaub's book, The Fear and Anxiety Solution, will provide you with the insights and tools to break through these challenges. Through a step-by-step process, Dr. Schaub explains how to resolve the subconscious root causes of fear and anxiety and build a strong foundation of inner peace and confidence. Visit www.thefearandanxietysolution.com and get your copy now.
Order your copy of Dr. Friedemann Schaub's The Fear and Anxiety Solution today. Visit thefearandanxietysolution.com for more information.
Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann, and we have been and we continue to talk about truth-telling and lying and how we can make choices for doing one or the other and why, and also what are the consequences. Now, let's go to the truth. Let's go to that, what I believe sets us free, heals us, makes us expand and become ultimately more of who we are meant to be. What can we do to escape those patterns of lying to others, to ourselves? What can we do to escape the patterns of being lied to and live more with that inner compass of truth? Now, the first thing I would suggest for you is just to make a decision today to watch. Watch when you just go off the track of truth and step into the mud of lying. Maybe you just catch yourself, when someone asks you, hey, can you do this? And you just don't want to, don't feel like it. You're tired, but you say, no, I'm really busy right now. Or your colleagues at work ask you, hey, do you want to go to lunch with us? And you just, don't really like one of them. And again, you're making up some kind of a story that makes you look better and not hurt anyone, but makes you also not have to go to lunch. Just notice how that whole being not true to others and yourself is playing out way more often than you may have realized before. And notice also what it does to you. Notice just how when you are not living in the truth, it just is almost a little bit soiling your mind. There's always a little stain inside that just makes you feel not quite proud of yourself. You got away with it, but ultimately, did it really boost your confidence, your self-worth? Well, probably not. But then secondly, when you're noticing that you're doing it, ask yourself why you're doing it. Is it because you want to just be left alone, but you cannot really have boundaries? Is it because you feel like people cannot handle the truth? Is it because you feel like that you need to look better than you really feel about yourself, that you have to deceive others to be liked, to be appreciated? Just notice what is the reason why, because when you notice what the reason behind the lie is, you also can see that there may be something that you can do to heal that root cause. The other thing that you want to do is also to be aware of the times, of course, when you are not allowing yourself to face the truth because you're afraid. Now, a client of mine told me a great story yesterday that she had a ringing in her ear. And usually, because she was dealing with anxiety, she would just avoid the truth and basically say to herself, oh, it's probably nothing. Oh, it's probably going to go away. Oh, probably it's, just a little tinnitus and nothing to worry about. But she knew that she would lie to herself because it would be her anxiety that she would just try to override by telling her these stories, not willing to go to the doctor and face whatever it is. But this time it was different. This time she said, I don't want to huddle in the corner and being afraid of the future. I just want to go bravely and face whatever that ringing is all about. And, well, the doctor pretty much told her nothing to worry about, maybe a little inflammation or maybe a little tinnitus. But by doing it, by facing the truth, she felt so empowered. She felt so strong. She felt so much more herself because she was no longer avoiding what she usually would avoid. So when you feel like, I don't want to go on the scale. I know I have been not really good with going to the ice box and maybe have been too much binging on ice cream. I don't want to see the truth. I don't want to see what really happened. And so you avoid the scale. Well, isn't that a form of lying to yourself? If you know that you are struggling with money, but you're still making purchases as if you had an overflowing account, isn't that also just not telling the truth, not facing the truth and pretending that things are different? So allow yourself to also face the truth. Face the truth that you avoid. If you have a feeling that your child is struggling, but you don't want to really know, or you feel like, well, it's probably something I cannot really help or handle. No, face the truth. Go and talk to your child. Try to understand why he or she is locking themselves into the bedroom and not wanting to get out, or why the grades are dropping. Face the truth. When you feel like that your partner, your spouse, is somehow withdrawing, but you don't really want to talk about it because you feel like, well, maybe, they're not really interested in me anymore, or maybe there's just, something else that I don't want to know about. Well, face the truth. Don't lie to yourself, pretending everything is fine. Speak up. When you feel also that there are things that you need, that's another form of lying. When you feel like, well, I would need to have more space, I would need to have more boundaries, I would need to have more attention, I would need to have someone to just hold me sometimes. And you never really express that because you tell yourself it's not going to happen. They don't want to. They're not really interested. They can't. It's, again, one form of lying to yourself. So face it. Face the truth by speaking your truth, speaking your needs, speaking about your weaknesses, about your fears, about that what you're missing, or that what you feel is just not right. And at the same time also see that sometimes speaking the truth can be speaking from a place of love, gratitude, appreciation. It's a form of lying when you are with someone. Let's say you're living with someone and you just don't really say how great you feel about this person. There are many, especially men, that are not necessarily telling their wives or girlfriends how beautiful they are. There are many people in relationships that are holding back because they feel like, well, I don't want to appear mushy or don't want to, go down into gushing over the person for whatever reason. So if you do feel the truth is, I really am deeply in love and I'm so glad that you're in my life, speak the truth as well. And don't lie to someone else by playing it cool and, holding yourself back. Own your truth. Own the truth also when it comes to yourself. For this is a very simple exercise. Go to the mirror, look into your face, and just be the neutral but also open observer of what you can see. Look into your eyes. Look at the wrinkles. Look at just who you are. Don't avoid yourself. Don't have makeup on. Just be more present with yourself. And this way, face your truth. Connect to your truth. And lastly, when it comes to living in the truth, go back to your inner compass on your morals, your values, and what's really important to you. Because at this time, we are told so many things that are basically coming from fear. It's more important to protect yourself than have compassion for others. It's more important to look after your own kind than reaching out to those that really are in dire need. It's more important to be safe than being someone who's saving others. If that's something that you deeply inside know, no, that's not really who I want to be. That's not really my belief. That's not really what my heart is telling me is right. Speak the truth. Be the truth. Resist that urge to protect through lying, protect through denying, protect through pretending, but really go back to your inner compass, go back on the track of speaking the truth, and be that change that you want to see in the world. Well, again, another hour is over, and this is a topic we could certainly talk again about. If you have any questions, or if you would like to have help with your own confidence, anxiety, or maybe troubles with lying, reach out to me, info@thefearandanxietysolution.com, or go to the website, thefearandanxietysolution.com. And again, if you want to participate in the raffle for the CD or get also that coupon for the reduction of the on-demand video seminar, same email, info@thefearandanxietysolution.com. Thank you very much, and just make really your commitment today to be the truth, to be a beacon of truth for yourself and those around you. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Empowerment Radio with Dr. Friedemann Schaub. Join Dr. Friedemann the first and third Wednesday each month at 11 a.m. Pacific as he addresses some of the most prevailing challenges of our daily lives. Discover how you can use the power of your mind to overcome stress, anxiety, and overwhelm and create a solid foundation of confidence and self-esteem. Learn cutting-edge tools so that you can approach every day with great ease, joy, and purpose. To learn more about what Dr. Schaub can do for you, visit thefearandanxietysolution.com.